What if one Formula One team just cracked the code to rear tire degradation and did it so well that even Red Bull is calling foul? That's exactly what exploded in Miami, where McLaren shocked the paddock with pace so dominant it left Max Verstappen sounding more confused than competitive. In a race where tire wear was supposed to be the great equalizer, Red Bull, famed for tire management, was left sliding like a midfield team while McLaren looked glued to the asphalt. Norris and Piastri weren't just quick, they were surgical, lapping over a second faster with no sign of drop-off. Verstappen radioed in, baffled mid-race, questioning how the McLarens could sustain such pace. This wasn't frustration, it was genuine disbelief. What McLaren delivered wasn't just an upgrade, it felt like a revelation. And while the world was watching the podium, Red Bull was watching something else: data. Strange, unsettling data that would kick off one of the most intense behind-the-scenes investigations the sport has seen in years. Alarmed by what they were witnessing, Red Bull launched a discreet internal investigation, bringing out thermal imaging tools and analyzing McLaren's rear brake zones and tires. What they found was even more troubling. Rear areas on the McLaren. Cars appeared significantly cooler than expected. Brake ducts are typically among the hottest regions of a car, designed to radiate heat away from brakes and tires. Yet, McLaren's setup seemed to achieve a level of cooling that defied standard engineering logic. Red Bull engineers were reportedly stunned by the data. It suggested either a remarkably advanced passive cooling mechanism or something straying into the realm of regulation bending. For a team that prides itself on innovation and precision, this anomaly was a direct threat, not just to Red Bull's competitiveness, but to their technical credibility. Whispers began circulating, some serious, some speculative, that McLaren might be using a banned method to condition their tires during the race. The most controversial theory was the possible injection of cooling agents, such as water vapor, into the tires to keep temperatures stable. While the FIA has long prohibited any form of active tire conditioning, these kinds of rumors are not new in Formula One. Similar claims surfaced after McLaren's unexpected pace at the Singapore GP last year, only to be brushed aside. But in the wake of the Miami performance, the paddock isn't laughing anymore. Even if untrue, the consistency of such speculation is troubling. It casts a shadow of doubt, prompting the kind of suspicion that no team wants lingering over a breakout performance. Following Red Bull's informal concerns, the FIA conducted a quiet post-race inspection focused specifically on McLaren's rear brake ducts and drums. Though no formal protest was submitted, the tension in the paddock was palpable. Engineers from rival teams lingered around the papaya orange cars longer than usual. McLaren's mechanics responded with subtle yet telling behavior, closing garage shutters quicker, moving more guardedly around their vehicles. It was clear something was going on, even if it hadn't yet broken into the public eye. In Formula One, where every team is looking for a competitive edge, moments like these become defining. The silence isn't comforting, it's strategic. And the message was clear. McLaren might be onto something the rest of the grid hadn't figured out. Yet, Red Bull, determined not to fall behind, began pushing the FIA for clarification, not just on brake ducts, but on how McLaren managed to leap ahead so drastically on high degradation circuits. This wasn't just about setup or driver form, it hinted at a systems-level engineering breakthrough that could shift the entire competitive landscape. McLaren seemed to have solved a problem the rest of the field was still grappling with, maintaining optimal rear tire temperatures without overloading the car's energy systems. If that's true, it isn't just an advantage, it's a potential game changer. For Red Bull, this meant rethinking not only strategy, but possibly the foundational design of their car moving forward. Publicly, Red Bull team principal Christian Horner tried to downplay the speculation. He reminded reporters that such scrutiny among teams is a regular part of Formula One. McLaren asked similar questions about our front suspension last year, he noted. But behind the scenes, reports suggest Horner is furious. Meanwhile, Helmut Marko took a more direct approach. Speaking with Austrian media, he implied that McLaren's sudden rise in form was too good to be natural, hinting that we've seen tricks before and we know what to look for. It was a classic Red Bull maneuver, casting doubt strategically without filing a protest, to apply pressure on both the FIA and McLaren through optics, rather than formal complaint. McLaren, on the other hand, responded with composure and confidence. Team principal Andrea Stella told the press that McLaren's performance gains came from legitimate improvements in suspension, braking, and aerodynamic efficiency. Zak Brown took it further, criticizing Red Bull's behavior. If you've got allegations, there's a proper way to go about it. file a formal protest, put money down, name the issue. His point was clear. Red Bull's method of back-channel accusations was disruptive, unfounded, and strategically motivated to rattle their momentum. By refusing to acknowledge the whispers as legitimate, McLaren positioned themselves as the composed and transparent party in the controversy. Still, perception in Formula One carries tremendous weight. Even without evidence, the notion that McLaren might be operating in a gray area has already shifted the narrative. Red Bull isn't just facing a faster rival, they're facing the erosion of their own technical supremacy. That's often enough to destabilize a dominant team's momentum. In a sport where marginal gains separate winners from midfielders, the suggestion of impropriety, even without proof, creates pressure. It forces teams to make defensive adjustments, puts drivers on edge, and shifts media focus. Whether or not McLaren actually breached regulations may ultimately be irrelevant in the short term. The damage, in terms of psychological warfare, may already be done. If the FIA ultimately finds that McLaren violated any regulation, even inadvertently, it could trigger retroactive sanctions, including disqualification or points deductions. Such a move would create chaos not just for McLaren, but for the championship as a whole. However, if McLaren is fully cleared and current indicators suggest that may be the case, the tables turn. Red Bull would then be seen as a team that cried foul after being legitimately beaten, a look that undermines their image as confident dominators. Verstappen, for his part, remained largely silent post-race. No finger-pointing, no media spectacle, just a stoic presence, a data-heavy debrief, and a team regrouping behind closed doors to prepare for a new level of technical warfare. The broader implication is profound. McLaren's potential breakthrough in tire temperature control could redefine race strategy across the grid. Rear tire temperature dictates pit windows, race pace, and overtaking capability. If McLaren has indeed cracked that code, they've introduced a new arms race in F1. Brake duct designs will be scrutinized, re-engineered, and imitated. We've seen this before with double diffusers, flexi wings, and energy recovery tweaks. Red Bull, once the pioneer in these battles, now finds itself reacting rather than leading. As the FIA's investigation quietly continues, the real war has begun. Not on track, but in engineering rooms, data centers, and technical meetings. The outcome won't just decide the legality of McLaren's Miami performance, it may determine the direction of development for the rest of the season. In F1, speed matters. But in moments like these, being smarter matters more.